about the amount of dollars that actually have been saved in New York regarding all the policies that have been instituted. So this is one question. And the second question for Dr. Carrillo. If you looked into the, I know read some of your papers regarding the influence of insecticides, and if you analyzed the influence of that regarding the arsenic issue in the different areas of Mexico, insecticides and arsenic, because it looked like such an important difference. Thank you.
Yes, many years ago in 1993, we published a very huge paper on DDT and breast cancer, because the group in Mount Sinai, led by Dr. Mary Wolf at that time, had reported an association between DDT and so forth. So far, there has been about 25 or 30 case control and population-based studies showing no association with DDE, that is the main metabolite of DDT. And the main reason is that DDE is anti-androgenic. And where we were performing many studies in different countries, other researchers were at that time showing that it was not an estrogenic as we thought. So it was expected to have no relation with the breast cancer that is more estrogenic related and anti-androgenic.
Just briefly, the answer to your question is no. I mean, I think that the community health survey is used to identify the changes in behavior, and again, I think there probably is data, I don't have it with me, that relates certain reductions in hospitalization rates or mortality that you would imagine you could project costs, but I don't have it myself. I think you might get into this multifactorial problem of claiming savings.
I have a question for Joe, but also for the other members of the panel. We have been discussing during these 3 days the role of the academies in prevention, and one thing that comes out is the education, lifestyle, but the idea is to provide sound scientific evidence. When you present your data, you several times said that such food probably, some other is we have more data. So I believe this is very important for the academies to really provide very sound evidence, because this has the impact on the economy, in the industry, not only in behavior. So I want to explore a little bit more, because some presenters say we need to avoid ta. You present, we have probably some evidence. This is sound evidence. So there is different recommendation, different type of recommendation. And this is very important to be trusted for the nation, that we provide sound evidence. So the society can decide on sound evidence.
I'm only going to comment from the policy perspective, and I defer to my expert colleagues on the specific. I think that the evidence is much stronger in the clinical area because the research is much better and it's much more straightforward. And so you see pretty good consistency. I was kind of watching the recommendations that were coming, pretty good consistency. I didn't go into details here, but I can see, the clinical recommendations are pretty sound, but there are a lot of political battles over those clinical recommendations, like the prostate cancer issue, like the mammography issue in the United States. And I think that that's why I think your point about the evidence, the clarity of evidence and consistency of evidence is very important. The community-based prevention evidence is, as I said, a lot of it is based on systematic review of the literature, and a lot of it is multifactorial. But I think the interesting thing to us at the policy level, it's very hard to get a conversation with the the Office of Management and Budget in the United States and the Congressional Budget Office, who do the budgeting for reform decisions. They met 3 times with experts on the community-based prevention issue around the writing of the Accountable Care Act. And they decided that while the evidence for community-based prevention wasn't as convincing, it wasn't as perfect, if you will, or as good as the clinical evidence, that they would provide funds because they felt it was sufficiently strong and that there hadn't been enough support for testing, for further research and testing. So they were convinced and allowed it to be paid for by federal health care reform, and that really is unprecedented. So I guess it was maybe under the theory of do no harm in the community-based side of things, but I think there's a lot more work to do in that space.
Okay. But perhaps the last intervention before.
The question is, what does the rest of the panel think about dropping out the screening for prostate cancer? The second one, do you have a rough idea of the cost of this program in Europe?
I'm sorry, I didn't bring those.
No, the cost of the program in New York, the program you showed us,
Yeah,
which was about the amount of money. Do you have any idea? In order to try to reproduce this in another place, how much does it cost?
I don't have those numbers, but I will, certainly from now on, I'll have them in the background.
Well, about the use of PSA as a screening for prostate cancer, there is a lot of discussion in the world. The European study showed that PSA worked, but the United States study is I think that the actual position is talk with the patient, talk with the people, explain the situation about over-diagnosis and the side effects of the result of high PSA. Maybe it is the critical position because urologists all the world like to use this it's a way of gain patients. I don't know if money.
In the U.S., it would be money for sure.
Well, I think it's time. Thank you very much for everyone.